Foundations of the human mind. The human mind is one of the most complex systems in the known universe, composed of billions of neurons. The brain generates thoughts, emotions, decisions, dreams, and awareness itself. At its core, the mind is the product of intricate biological processes occurring within the brain and nervous system. Yet it is more than just cells and signals. It is the center of our identity, our consciousness, and our experience of the world. The average human brain weighs about 3 pounds and contains approximately 86 billion neurons. Each neuron can form thousands of connections with other neurons, creating a vast dynamic network. These connections, called synapses, are where signals are passed from one neuron to another through electrical impulses and chemical messengers known as neurotransmitters. The brain communicates internally at incredible speed, faster than any computer ever built. Despite being physically small, the brain consumes around 20% of the body's energy. That's because thinking, perceiving, remembering, and feeling are incredibly demanding processes. Even when you are resting or sleeping, your brain remains active, managing vital functions and processing experiences. The mind is usually understood in two dimensions: the conscious and the unconscious. The conscious mind is the part you are aware of, what you're thinking right now, what you see, hear, and feel. It is the tip of the iceberg. Beneath it lies the unconscious mind, which stores memories, automatic habits, emotional responses, and more. Much of what we do in daily life is actually influenced by these hidden layers. Consider, for example, how you learned to walk. At first, it required intense focus and effort, but over time, the pattern became automatic. That's the power of procedural memory and the unconscious mind. Learning becomes second nature. The same is true for driving a car, typing on a keyboard, or recognizing familiar faces. The brain is divided into several main regions, each responsible for different functions. The frontal lobe, located just behind your forehead, is involved in reasoning, decision making, and self control. This area is particularly developed in humans compared to other species. It's what allows us to plan, imagine the future, reflect on the past, and suppress impulses. It's also linked to our personality. Behind the frontal lobe lies the parietal lobe, which processes sensory information like touch, temperature, and pain. Then there's the occipital lobe at the back of the head, dedicated almost entirely to vision. The temporal lobes, located near your ears, are involved in hearing, language, and memory. Deep within the brain lies the limbic system, a set of structures associated with emotion and memory. The amygdala, for example, plays a role in fear and aggression, while the hippocampus is essential for forming new memories. These emotional centers are closely tied to our survival instincts, guiding us in ways that often bypass logical thought. Further below, the brainstem connects the brain to the spinal cord and controls automatic functions like breathing, heart rate, and sleep. Although it operates largely outside our awareness, this part of the brain is vital for life itself. And then there's the mysterious seat of consciousness, the part of the brain responsible for our sense of self. Scientists still debate exactly where consciousness arises, but many theories point to the coordinated activity of multiple brain networks working together, such as the default mode network, which activates when the mind is at rest or wandering. Interestingly, the brain is not a static organ. It changes constantly, adapting to new information and experiences. This capacity for change is called neuroplasticity. It means that every time you learn something new, or even recall a memory, your brain slightly rewires itself. New connections form, old ones weaken, and the mind evolves. This ability is strongest in childhood, but continues throughout life. Another essential feature of the brain is its ability to filter information. At any given moment, your senses are receiving millions of signals, from light and sound to pressure and heat, but you're only aware of a small fraction. That's thanks to a mechanism known as selective attention. Your brain decides what's relevant and allows you to focus on that while ignoring the rest. The mind also has a remarkable capacity for imagination. Unlike computers, which process data in fixed ways, the human mind can create. It can imagine places it's never been, faces it's never seen, and futures that have not yet happened. This creative ability is rooted in our neural architecture and is fundamental to storytelling, innovation, and empathy. Memory is another crucial function of the mind. There are several types of memory, including short term, long term, semantic, and episodic. Short term memory holds a small amount of information temporarily, like a phone number you just heard. Long term memory stores knowledge for days, years, or even a lifetime. Semantic memory refers to facts and general knowledge, while episodic memory involves personal experiences. But memory is not like a video recording. Each time we recall something, we reconstruct it from fragments. That's why memories can change over time or become distorted. The act of remembering is itself a creative process, influenced by our emotions, beliefs, and context. Language is another product of the human mind. The ability to understand and produce language is rooted in specific areas of the brain, such as Broca's area, responsible for speech production, and Wernicke's area, important for comprehension. Language allows us to communicate ideas, express feelings, and build complex societies. It also shapes how we think. The structure of a language can influence how its speakers perceive time, space, and relationships. The mind doesn't just perceive the outside world, it also interprets it. This interpretation is influenced by past experiences, expectations, and beliefs. Two people can witness the same event, but perceive it differently because their minds filter and shape the input. This is what gives rise to individual perspectives and personal realities. Finally, the mind is deeply tied to the body. Thoughts and emotions can affect physical health, and the state of the body can influence the mind. Stress, for instance, can cause muscle tension, headaches, and fatigue. Conversely, relaxation techniques like breathing, meditation, or physical activity can calm the mind. Understanding the mind is not just a scientific pursuit, it is a journey inward. To explore the mind is to explore what it means to be human, to feel, to remember, to hope, and to dream. And that is just the beginning. Emotion, perception, and the subconscious mind. Emotions are central to the human experience. They shape how we respond to the world, how we interact with others, and even how we make decisions. While emotions might seem mysterious or unpredictable, they have a clear biological basis. The brain generates emotional responses through a complex system involving the limbic system, hormones, memories, and sensory input. The amygdala plays a central role in processing emotions, particularly fear and threat detection. When something potentially dangerous appears, the amygdala reacts within milliseconds, preparing the body for a rapid response. This ancient survival mechanism, known as the fight or flight response, once helped our ancestors escape predators. Today, it can be triggered by things like a sudden noise, a harsh word, or even a troubling memory. Emotions, however, are not limited to fear. Joy, sadness, love, anger, pride, shame. These all arise through intricate interactions between brain regions and chemical messengers like dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and cortisol. These chemicals influence mood, motivation, and behavior. A burst of dopamine can create feelings of reward and pleasure, while an imbalance of serotonin can lead to anxiety or depression. Importantly, emotions are not just reactions, they also influence how we perceive the world. For example, when you are anxious, your attention becomes hyper focused on potential dangers. When you're happy, you may interpret neutral events as positive. This is known as emotional bias. It colors perception, sometimes helping us stay safe, other times distorting reality. Perception itself is not a passive process. The brain does not simply record reality, it constructs it. From the moment you open your eyes in the morning, your brain is assembling images, sounds, textures, and smells into a coherent picture of the world. It fills in gaps, corrects for inconsistencies, and uses memory and context to make sense of what you encounter. Visual perception is a prime example. What you see is not just a reflection of light, it is a mental interpretation. The brain organizes patterns, contrasts, and colors into objects and scenes. It makes assumptions, like that light comes from above, or that closer objects are larger. That's why optical illusions work. They reveal the shortcuts the mind takes to make sense of the visual world. The same applies to other senses. Sound is not simply pressure waves in the air. It becomes music, voice, or noise only after the brain decodes it. Touch is interpreted based on context. The same physical sensation can feel comforting or painful, depending on expectations and emotional state. This leads us into the world of the subconscious mind. The subconscious operates below the level of awareness, but it has profound influence over how we think, feel, and act. It stores learned patterns, automatic behaviors, and suppressed memories. Most of the time, we are not fully aware of the forces shaping our actions because they originate in this hidden part of the mind. For example, consider habits. These are routines that have been repeated so often they become automatic, like brushing your teeth, locking the door, or checking your phone. These actions are stored in the subconscious. You don't need to think about each step. The mind handles it for you, freeing up mental resources. The subconscious is also responsible for intuition, that gut feeling you get when something feels right or wrong, even without logical explanation. Intuition is not magic. It is the result of patterns your brain has learned over time, often without your conscious awareness. It draws on countless past experiences, assembling them into a fast, almost instant judgment. Dreams are another window into the subconscious. During sleep, the mind processes memories, emotions, and unresolved thoughts. Sometimes this results in vivid stories that seem strange or symbolic. While the exact function of dreams is still debated, many researchers believe they help us consolidate learning, regulate mood, and simulate problem solving. Another fascinating element of the subconscious is the influence of belief. What you believe about yourself, others, or the world shapes your experience deeply. If you believe you're capable, your mind looks for evidence to confirm that. If you believe you're unworthy, the same thing happens. This is called the confirmation bias, and it operates largely outside of conscious awareness. Beliefs can even shape physical responses. This is demonstrated in the placebo effect, where a person experiences real improvement from a treatment that has no active ingredient simply because they believe it will work. The mind's expectations can produce genuine physiological changes. Memory, too, has subconscious layers. There are things you remember without trying, like how to ride a bike. This is procedural memory. There are things you know, like facts and dates. That's declarative memory. And then there are memories that influence you without your awareness. These are implicit memories. Sometimes unresolved emotional events from childhood remain hidden, yet still shape adult behavior. Language and thought are also shaped by subconscious processes. You often know what you want to say before fully forming the words. Your mind organizes grammar, vocabulary, and tone without conscious effort. Language is generated through a dance between conscious intention and subconscious structure. The subconscious also protects you. It represses painful memories, filters out overwhelming information, and helps maintain a sense of continuity. But at times, it can hold on to patterns that no longer serve you, like fear, self doubt, or limiting beliefs. Much of personal growth and therapy involves bringing these subconscious patterns into conscious awareness so they can be examined and changed. Importantly, the conscious and subconscious minds are not separate, they work together in harmony, like two dancers moving in rhythm. The conscious mind sets intentions and goals. The subconscious mind carries them out through patterns, habits, and emotions. When aligned, they can create powerful results. Many daily experiences are shaped by this interplay. You might consciously decide to eat healthier, but find yourself automatically reaching for snacks at night. That's the subconscious at work. By understanding it and by gently reprogramming it through repetition and awareness, new habits can be formed. The human mind is an ever adapting system. It learns from experience, updates beliefs, stores emotional patterns, and refines its perceptions. Most of this happens beneath the surface, in the rich terrain of the subconscious. And yet, even in stillness, even in sleep, the mind continues its quiet work. Creativity, consciousness, and the self. What is creativity? Is it a spark of light in the darkness, a whisper in the back of your mind? Or is it something deeper, an ancient force flowing through the very architecture of your brain? Creativity is often seen as the ability to make something new, but in truth, it is more than invention. It is connection. The creative mind does not simply build from scratch. Instead, it weaves together old memories, fragments of thoughts, half finished images, and feelings we didn't know we had. Like an artist mixing colors never meant to blend, the mind creates something that has never existed before. Neuroscientists have found that creativity emerges from the interaction of multiple brain networks. One of them is the default mode network, active when the mind wanders, when you're daydreaming, imagining, drifting. Another is the executive control network, which helps you focus, evaluate, and shape ideas. The dance between these systems is what gives birth to imagination, and this dance can begin in silence. Sometimes the greatest ideas arise not when we are thinking hard, but when we are doing nothing, walking alone, taking a shower, staring out a window. In those moments, the conscious mind relaxes its grip, and the subconscious begins to speak quietly. At first, a whisper, a thought, a strange image that just feels right. But where do these images come from? To answer that, we must explore consciousness itself. Consciousness is the most intimate mystery. You live inside it every moment, yet no one can fully explain what it is. Scientists define it as awareness, the ability to experience, to reflect, to know that you know. But that's just a beginning. Think about it. The brain is a physical organ made of cells and molecules, and yet, somehow, it produces your entire inner world: the sound of a friend's voice, the taste of morning coffee, the feeling of longing, joy, or deja vu. None of these things exist outside of you. They are born in your mind, and they belong only to you. Some theories suggest that consciousness arises from complexity, that when enough information flows between brain regions, a threshold is crossed and awareness appears. Others believe it is an emergent property, like a melody that arises only when all the notes play together. Still others ask whether consciousness might not be produced by the brain, but revealed through it, like light passing through a stained glass window. Whatever its origin, consciousness is not a single thing. It is layered. There is sensory awareness, knowing what you see, hear, touch. There is emotional awareness, feeling joy or sorrow. There is reflective awareness, knowing that you are you. This last layer, the self, is perhaps the most elusive. So, who are you? Are you your thoughts, your memories, your name, or are you something deeper? The self is not fixed. It changes over time. The person you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, might feel like a stranger now. Your preferences have shifted. Your beliefs have evolved. And yet, there's a thread, a feeling of continuity that runs through all the versions of you. That thread is the felt sense of self. It is quiet, wordless, and ever present. The brain supports this identity through networks like the medial prefrontal cortex, which helps you reflect on your own thoughts, and the posterior cingulate cortex, which integrates memory and meaning. These structures form the core of self-representation. But the story you tell about yourself, your life, your values, your purpose, that story is woven through experience, and sometimes the story changes. Moments of deep insight, whether through reflection, art, nature, or loss, can shift the structure of the self. You may come to see yourself differently, to reframe your past, to imagine a new future. This capacity is uniquely human. It's the ability not just to live a life, but to interpret it, reshape it, reimagine it. In some ways, we are all authors of our own minds. And yet, paradoxically, the more we seek to define ourselves, the more we notice something strange. The self is always just out of reach. You can observe your thoughts, but who is observing? You can feel emotions, but who is the one feeling them? This leads to one of the oldest questions in philosophy. Is there a true I beneath the mind? In many contemplative traditions, like meditation or mindfulness, practitioners are invited to look inward, not to analyze, but to witness. to observe thoughts as they come and go, to notice sensations, to rest in stillness. Over time, many report that the self begins to feel less like a fixed identity and more like an open space, a field of awareness, spacious and free. From this place, creativity flows more freely, not forced, but arising like ripples on the surface of a still lake. Imagination, too, expands. The brain no longer clings to what it knows. It plays, it dreams. And perhaps this is the deeper function of the human mind, not just to think or solve problems, but to wonder, to create meaning, to hold contradiction, to gaze at the stars and ask, what if? Your mind is not a machine. It is a living, changing, breathing system, one capable of abstraction, love, language, silence, and transformation. It can suffer and it can heal. It can forget and it can remember in new ways. You are not just the mind, but the mind is a mirror that shows you again and again who you are becoming. And in the quiet moments, when the noise of the day fades, you can hear it again. The pulse of thought, the warmth of memory, the spark of a new idea waiting to be born. Sleep, dreams, and altered states of mind. Every night, the mind surrenders to sleep. It lets go of control, of language, of time, of the to-do lists and conversations and scattered plans. Slowly, almost invisibly, it drifts into a different world, a place where thought is no longer bound by logic, where time bends, where the impossible becomes real. Sleep is not absence. It is not nothingness. It is a journey, and the mind is very much awake during it, just in a different way. The cycle of sleep unfolds in distinct stages. First comes the descent, light sleep, where the muscles relax, the heartbeat slows, and awareness begins to dissolve. Then you enter deeper stages, slow wave sleep, where brain activity becomes rhythmic and slow, like gentle ocean waves rolling onto a shore. In these stages, the body repairs itself, the immune system strengthens, memories consolidate, the mind sifts through the day's experiences, selecting what to keep and what to let go. It is a quiet form of housekeeping, performed by neural systems that work best in stillness. And then, something extraordinary happens. After about 90 minutes, the mind shifts. Brain waves become faster. The eyes move beneath closed lids. This is REM sleep, rapid eye movement. It is here that the most vivid dreams unfold. In REM sleep, the brain becomes almost as active as it is when you are awake, but the body remains still, temporarily paralyzed to keep dreams from becoming actions. In this paradox, an active brain inside a resting body, dreams are born. But what are dreams? No one fully knows. Some theories suggest they are a simulation, helping us rehearse threats or challenges. Others propose that dreams are the mind's way of organizing memories, connecting fragments into a narrative. Still others see dreams as emotional processing, a theater where our fears, desires, and questions play themselves out. And sometimes dreams are simply dreams, images without reason, stories without structure. People you haven't seen in years appear without explanation. Places that feel familiar but don't exist. Time moves sideways. The laws of physics bend. You fly. You speak with those who are gone. You revisit moments that never happened. And yet, something in them feels true. Dreams remind us that the mind is not limited by the waking world. It can invent entire landscapes in seconds. It can solve problems without effort. Many scientific discoveries, artistic breakthroughs, and personal insights have emerged from dreams. The structure of the benzene molecule, the melody to famous symphonies, stories, equations, paintings, all whispered through the veil of sleep. Lucid dreaming is one such phenomenon. When the dreamer becomes aware they are dreaming, in this state, the rules of the dream world can be bent. You can make choices, fly, explore, ask questions. It is a unique intersection of conscious and unconscious awareness, a playground of the mind. But sleep does more than just dream. It cleans. During deep sleep, cerebrospinal fluid flows through the brain, flushing out metabolic waste. It is as if the brain washes itself, preparing for another day of thought, memory, and experience. This cleansing process is essential. Without sleep, the mind becomes foggy, emotions become harder to regulate, attention fades. Eventually, hallucinations and confusion can set in. Sleep is not optional. It is a foundation of mental health. And yet, in modern life, it is often neglected. The human mind evolved with cycles of light and dark. The setting sun signaled the time to rest. But now, with artificial light, screens, and overstimulation, the mind is constantly pulled toward wakefulness. It forgets how to settle. It forgets how to surrender. But sleep is not the only altered state the mind can enter. There are others. States of meditation, hypnosis, trance, deep focus, and even daydreaming all offer glimpses into the mind's flexibility. In these states, the brain shifts into different patterns of activity: alpha waves, theta waves, even gamma bursts. The mind loosens its grip on linear thought. It explores sideways. In meditation, the mind becomes still. Attention turns inward. Thoughts come and go like clouds, but the observer remains. With time, the boundary between self and world softens. Breath and body merge with awareness. This state has measurable effects: reduced stress, improved mood, and even structural changes in the brain itself. In flow states, moments of deep immersion, whether in art, sport, or work, the sense of self fades, time dilates, the mind operates at full capacity, but without effort. This state has been described by artists, athletes, and thinkers across cultures. It is a gift of the mind when passion meets presence. And then there are more mysterious states, those induced by sensory deprivation, fasting, or even near death experiences. In these rare moments, people report visions, feelings of unity, or glimpses of something beyond language. Whether biological, spiritual, or psychological, these states remind us that the mind holds more than we know. The common thread in all of them is this: the mind is fluid. It can shift its shape. It can dream. It can wake. It can imagine, reflect, dissolve, and reassemble. It can transcend time, return to the past, or stretch toward an imagined future. And always, it returns to the body, to the breath, to this moment. Sleep is not escape, it is return, a return to rhythm, to natural cycles, to a part of you that does not need words or answers. And when you close your eyes, the mind prepares again, not to vanish, but to transform into a story, a symbol, soft space where the edges of self blur. And in that space, it rests, meaning, purpose, and the connected mind. Somewhere deep inside the mind, beyond memory and logic, beyond habit and thought, there is a quiet longing, a desire to understand, to belong, to find meaning. It is not something we are taught. It seems to emerge naturally. A child stares at the stars and asks, "Why are we here?" An adult looks back on a life lived and wonders, "What did it mean?" The human mind does more than perceive. It interprets. Every sound, every glance, every word is not just received, but filtered through a web of beliefs, values, and emotional threads. The mind is not just a mirror of the world, it is a storyteller, and it is always writing. The mind builds narratives about who we are, where we come from, what matters. These stories help us make sense of experience. Without them, life becomes noise. With them, it becomes music. Even in silence, the mind searches for patterns. A shadow becomes a figure. A coincidence becomes a sign. A memory becomes a message. This meaning making process is what allows us to navigate uncertainty, but it also comes with weight. We attach meaning to moments, a touch, a goodbye, a victory, a failure, and sometimes we carry those meanings long after the moment has passed. The mind does not let go easily. It replays, re examines, rewrites. We remember not just what happened, but what we believe it meant. And over time, those beliefs shape us. They influence how we see the world, how we treat others, and how we treat ourselves. But meaning is not fixed, it evolves. An event that once felt like an end may later reveal itself as a beginning. A mistake may become a lesson. A period of silence may become the birthplace of something new. This is the mind's quiet gift, its ability to revise, to learn, to heal, to forgive. Purpose, like meaning, is not something the mind finds. It is something the mind builds, slowly, gently, with repetition. It may begin as a feeling, a whisper, a pull towards something you can't quite name. Over time, it becomes clearer, sometimes through work, sometimes through love, sometimes through loss, and sometimes purpose is not about doing, but being. The mind, though always active, is not always chasing. It can rest in presence, in connection, in the stillness of sharing a moment with another human being. This is where the deepest parts of the mind come alive, not in isolation, but in relationship. The brain is wired for connection. From birth, we are attuned to faces, voices, expressions. Mirror neurons help us feel what others feel. When someone smiles at us, we are likely to smile back. When someone cries, we feel a tightening in our chest. Empathy is not just an emotion, it is a neurological resonance. The mind is not an island, it is a bridge. Through language, touch, music, silence, we reach each other. We reflect each other. In every relationship, the mind expands a little. It learns to hold more difference, more complexity, more love. Loneliness hurts because the mind is built for contact. It thrives when it feels seen, when it belongs. That is why communities, rituals, shared goals, and simple kindness are so powerful. They ground the mind in something larger than the self. And still, there is a part of the mind that remains private, a room only you can enter. It is here that your deepest thoughts echo, where your inner voice speaks in a tone only you recognize, where dreams and memories mix, where you ask the questions you never say aloud. Who am I? What do I want? What does it mean to be alive? The mind doesn't always answer clearly, but even the asking shapes who you are. And perhaps that is enough to wonder, to reflect, to feel, to imagine. The mind does not need to have everything figured out. It only needs space, stillness, curiosity, a willingness to listen to its own rhythms. And in listening, something remarkable happens. We realize we are not alone, because to have a mind is to be part of something vast, a collective hum of thought and feeling, a human inheritance passed from generation to generation, not through DNA alone, but through stories, symbols, questions, and dreams. You are not your fears, not your titles, not your mistakes. You are the awareness behind all of it. And that awareness is enough. Even as you sleep, your mind continues, gently weaving your memories into meaning, your questions into stories, your silence into rest. It does not need to be watched. It knows what to do. And so, as the world grows quieter and breath deepens, the mind softens its hold. It lets go of thought. It lets go of effort. It drifts, not away, but inward, toward peace, toward stillness, toward sleep.